Originally for this video, I was just going to make a review on Splatfest in general, talk about things like the themes, the point system, the atmosphere, and of course things like turf war and tricolor. In the end, I decided to scrap it once I realized that the turf war in Splatfest is really no different than the standard turf war. If I want to do that, I'll just do it when I review the main multiplayer along with the ranked modes. So I decided to strip it all down to just the unique mode exclusive to Splatfest, the tricolor battles. It's not like I'll be able to cram this mode into any other part of the game I review, so I might as well just give it its own special video. I'll go over a brief summary of what a Splatfest is just in case you don't know what the fuck a Splatoon is. Splatfests are a special event that happens once a month. People choose a team and then go after each other, and the one that has the most points gained from winning battles wins overall. What do these teams represent? Well, before a Splatfest starts, you'll be asked a question of what you like more. Cats or dogs, warm foods or cold foods, forward-facing toilet paper or being wrong, circumcised or uncircumcised, things like that. They've been around since the first game. It's a staple of the franchise. In Splatoon 3, they make it where you now have 3 options to pick from. And along with it, there's now a new mode exclusive to these Splatfests called Tricolor Battles, where the 3 teams go up against each other simultaneously. But rather than just making a 3v3v3, the Splatoon team decided to do something a little different. It's a 2v2v4. That sounds like an unfair matchup, and for a while when the game launched, it kind of was. It was heavily skewed against the defenders, making it damn near impossible for them to win anything. And after the chill update, they made a massive change in how the mode was set up to try to fix it. So not only will I go over the basic design of this mode, I'll also talk about what made it unbalanced and the changes that Nintendo made to make it more, not that. I've actually been to a real Splatfest before. It wasn't what I was expecting. Lots of penises. I'm also really not going to get too deep into the actual map design for these things because 1, you can't go back and replay these. So I don't really feel comfortable commenting on them. Besides, the map design in of itself could be its whole own separate thing that could get into later. These basically are just the same maps with slight changes to better fit the 2v2v4 setup. The ultimate goal of Tricolor is still the same as regular turf war, to cover the ground in as much ink as humanly possible. But now they have unique conditions to help achieve that goal. You have 2 sides, the defenders and the attackers. In the center of the map, there is something called the Ultra Signal. It's the defender's job to protect it and keep the attackers from stealing it. And the attackers want to steal it. If one of the attackers do successfully steal the Ultra Signal, they get something called the Sprinkler of Doom. You know what's interesting? Sprinkler of Doom actually has a lot of different names amongst the different languages. In Canadian French, it's called Flail Jet. In French, it's Scourge Fountain. In German, it's called Giga Sprinkler. Italian, it's Sprinkler of Fate. Mexico Spanish, it's Lethal Sprinkler. In Spain Spanish, it's Fatal Gusher. And then you have Korean, where it's just called Mark. It'll spray ink everywhere, making it easier for your team to cover turf. You can actually get splattered by the droplets that fall down, which would be really embarrassing, so don't do that. If you manage to grab both of the signals, you pretty much guaranteed yourself the victory. It's almost impossible for the defending team to come back from that. Now, you may be wondering where the 2v2 part comes in, because right now it just kind of sounds like a 4v4 with extra steps. While the attackers might both be on the same side, they're not on the same team. You can attack your fellow attackers. Why the hell would you want to do that? Well, the Ultra Signal actually gives you extra points if you manage to nab it for your team. Extra points that add to the overall ranking. Not only that, but if your team inks the most turf overall, you get 6,000 points while the other attacking team just gets 5,000. And the defenders get 0 because they sucked shit. So even though you're on the same side, there's still incentive to attack the other attacking team. And the devs really wanted you to do this because of how the overall game mode is designed. The defending team is actually put at kind of like a disadvantage. Grabbing the Ultra Signal is not too difficult of a task. You just touch it, hold it for a solid 5 seconds or so, and it's yours. Not only that, but if you fail to secure it, then each consecutive time you grab it, the time limit in which you have to hold it shortens. So if you just brute force your way in and just keep grabbing it and dying over and over again, eventually you'll reach a point where you're able to secure it almost the instant you grab it. Not only that, but you actually get extra points just for trying to attempt to get the Ultra Signal. So this method of kind of bashing your head against a brick wall until it breaks is actually kind of encouraged here. Probably because Nintendo wants us to get brain damage so we become stupid enough to pay for shit like this. Paper Mario Sticker Star was $40 until the bitter end. The defending team also really doesn't have their own version of the Sprinkler of Doom. If the Ultra Signal is secured, then the game is just now harder for them for the rest of the match. Doubly so if both are secured. How it balances out though is that it's difficult to grab the Ultra Signal since you have 6 teammates on your ass. The defending team wants you not to get it, but the other attacking team wants it for themselves. Of course, with that in mind, it kind of leads to the opposite problem of it being too difficult for the attackers since they're constantly attacking each other, and neither of them will get the Ultra Signal, just making it more likely for the defenders to win. So So the attacking teams had to decide when it's best to work together and clear out the defense, and when to backstab each other and take the ultra signal for themselves. It's a balancing act. Do you secure the victory by letting the other team get the ultra signal, or do you risk it all for the chance of those extra points? It's very interesting, and in a way, a very secure game mode with no balancing issues whatsoever. What could possibly go wrong? The problem: society. Tricolor, when it launched, was set up a little bit differently. You see, around the halfway point during a Splatfest, Tricolor battles become available, in which they'll show the results of who's currently in the lead, and the one that's currently in first becomes defenders, while the other two become attackers. Attackers can go ahead and pick Tricolor battle freely whenever they want, but defenders just kind of get randomly thrown in there, whether they like it or not. So you remember when I said that like attacking teams are supposed to attack each other like a minute ago? Yeah, that didn't happen. The attacking teams would almost always work together 100% of the time, just completely curb stomping the defending team. This is because they weren't really given any reason to attack each other, which I know just kind of contradicts what I said earlier about the bonus points and its incentive to make you want to betray your fellow attackers, but that logic only works in isolation. If it was simply getting the most points overall, then yeah, that would be the case, but it wasn't. You see, another difference from back then is that Tricolor battles didn't have its own spot on the scoreboard. When the final totals were tallied up to determine the winner, all the points you got from Tricolor battles would just be lumped up in the open turf war category. So if you always let the other fellow attackers win, it wasn't that big of a deal. You could always just make up those lost points in regular turf war battles. You also still got 5,000 points for defeating the defenders. It's only a 1,000 point difference, so it wasn't all that bad. The second reason was that the defending team was always the team in the lead. So is it really in the attacker's best interest to go after each other's throats and risk letting the team in first maintain an even stronger lead? This caused major problems with balance. It made it far too difficult for the defending team to win. Like, I know I also said that they were intentionally put at a disadvantage, but it shouldn't feel that way. I remember when I was playing the Testfire Splatfest, I was Team Rock, and every time I played Tricolor, it was like a fucking cakewalk. They initially tried addressing this by making changes to the first map that was playable in Tricolor, Sturgeon Shipyard. The biggest change being removing these kind of pathways here for the attackers, limiting their approach and making where they come from more predictable. You know, removing flanks essentially. That's something Splatoon 3 really likes to do. And it helped a little bit, but the core issue was still very much present. During one of the Splatfests, they made Tricolor so fucking rare, basically nobody was getting them, since they knew it was completely fucked up and unfair to the defending team, so they needed to fix it somehow. It seems like such a massive oversight on the developer's part, but I can kinda understand. Sometimes when you're making and balancing a mode, you focus on so much on how you think the game should be played, that you overlook how it might actually be played once it's out in the open. So they made all these decisions and tweaks based off a 2v2v4 setup without taking into consideration what happens if the teams only work together 100% of the time. So, how do they fix it? Well, after the chill update, the Splatoon team completely changed how the Tricolor battles work. The first change was that the leading team was no longer locked to being the defenders. Now any team can be either or. Because of this, it's no longer about taking down the guys in first. Now it's more focused on just winning the most points. In fact, if the leading team is your fellow attackers, then it's probably not in your best interest to let them get the ultra signal and help gain a stronger lead. So you're more encouraged to go against them. The second change is that Tricolor is its own separate category with its own point system. And when you pick it, you only play the Tricolor battles. Now that it's in its own separate category, if you get second, you can't just play some open battles to make up the difference. The only way to catch up is to get first. So if you want a streak of second place or even just straight up losing, you're more likely to want to get those signals for yourself to help your team catch up. Also, if you're someone who keeps allowing the other team to win, then more likely than not, you're actually being more detrimental to everyone, since you're more likely helping other teams get ahead rather than trying to get up there yourself. The update helped rebalance the game to make people play it more in the way that was intended. I remember when this update first released, I thought, wow, the Splatoon team just gave up on balancing this, didn't they? Just let all the teams have a chance to get fucking bodied evenly. But then I realized that this update was the balance change. By doing this, they removed the two biggest incentives for the attacking teams to work together, taking down the leader and being able to make up points in regular turf battles. Now the only incentive to work together is if things get potentially desperate and the defenders are at a risk of winning overall if you two don't do something about it. I really like Tricolor. I especially love it when you splat someone from the other attacking team when it's clearly optimal and they go online and complain about it. Like, what the fuck do they think this is, a charity? Unless you want to like count like PETA or something. They're technically a charity. You know, that works. Tricolor's a lot like PETA. You kill your teammates. They take the basic gameplay of Turf War and give it an interesting twist. I kind of wish it was available anytime, not just during Splatfest. Maybe after the Splatfest ends, they could do something like that. I also really hope that they have a Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles Splatfest. It's just too perfect. Please! I also find it fascinating the unique ways that some developers take to fix major problems with a design issue, and how from the outside it seems kind of odd or even like a lazy decision, when in actuality it's the best way to fix the major problem. Sometimes when faced with a problem, it's really easy to get laser focused on a specific part and fail to look at the big picture, and the changes you end up making might actually make the issues worse. Like if they just kept updating the maps to make them super oppressive, like against the attackers, while that might have technically fixed the issue, you would have created a new problem where it's just no longer fun to play as the attacker since they have no options. You have to be creative and think outside the box sometimes. Can't be afraid to change the foundation of something if that foundation just isn't working. I understand this, especially when it comes to video making. You run into issues with scripts, editing, jokes, and sometimes it's best to take a step back and look at the big picture and really try to find the root of the issue, rather than just trying to redo or change one specific part that isn't working. Gotta give it the pink slip. You know, provide severance pay.